The Legend of Sunset Shimmer, Ocarina of Time. By Ganondorf 8. November 11, 2014. Chapter 1, Leaving the Sacred Forest to Explore the World. You would think that I would have heard the sounds of a plant rising up behind me in an effort to bite my head, right? Then you have thought correctly, because I just barely managed to hear it before I whipped around, and confronted what I originally thought to be a harmless plant. Just as it was striking towards me, I managed to jump to the left to avoid getting hit. I then turned to Spike to see if he would know what to do.
Okay Spike, this plant wasn't moving earlier, and now it's trying to attack me, so what exactly should I do here? I would tell you to use your sword to attack and your shield for defense, but you chose to come in here without them all because you had no idea how to use a sword. So, unless you have some other means of attack, you might as well just run away from this Deku Baba, and avoid all future encounters with monsters,"
replied Spike.
"You want me to just run away?"
I asked.
"You have nothing to fight it with, and I don't want to see you meet with a terrible fate having only just started this journey. Running away right now is the best course of action you can take, Sunset Shimmer,"
replied Spike. Running away. Being unable to do anything. Hearing those words wounded my heart because that is all I did during these past months at Canterlot High. All I ever did was run away from my problems without confronting them. I refused to run away from this problem as that would be accepting defeat, and my friends would never forgive me if I just gave up. Then I realized that I had my magic, but would it even work in this world? I began to concentrate hard in order to conjure up the magic within me, and fire appeared in my hands. This shocked me so much that I threw the fire, and it struck the plant, causing it to burst into flames and burning to a cinder. Spike was just as shocked as I was when he saw what had just happened.
"Where in the world did that come from?" "That was my own magical powers," I answered. "Didn't you say a while ago that you had magic deep inside you?"
asked Spike.
"That's right. In the world where I come from, Equestria, magic is used by unicorns, of which I am one, so because of that, using magic is pretty much second nature, although I was expecting it to come from my head instead of my hands. That's why I reacted the way that I did," I replied before realizing that I was a human instead of a unicorn.
I guessed that Spike was going to quickly laugh at me, or even worse question what I had said, so I had to quickly explain it to him before he could say anything.
"Back in Equestria, I used my horn to cast magic, but since I came to live in the human world, I couldn't use magic until I was able to via a transformation which gives me pony ears and a pony tail extending down from the back of my hair." "Oh yes. The whole I'm from another world bit,"
moaned Spike.
"You don't believe me?"
I asked.
"I actually do find that hard to believe, and I especially can't imagine you having once been a unicorn. I'm sorry if I don't believe you, Sunset Shimmer, but at the very least I've accepted you wanting to be called that instead of Link,"
replied Spike. So he didn't believe that I was once a unicorn from Equestria, but he was accepting of my name. As I made my way through the inside of the Great Deku Tree, I encountered more Deku Babas, as Spike called them, but they posed no trouble to me since I used my magic to deal with them, although I was still having trouble due to it coming from my hands. Eventually, I had reached a room which contained a treasure chest, and my intuition told me that there was something within it that I just had to have.
"You know, Sunset Shimmer, seeing you use magic is certainly different because you are the first Kokiri to have ever displayed such a talent. Most of the other children prefer to use Deku sticks, Deku nuts, and the occasional slingshot, but you have set a new level by using magic? I'm actually very impressed by it,"
said Spike.
"Then does that mean,"
I asked,
"that I believe your story? Sorry, but I just can't accept the fact that you claim to be a unicorn from a magical world instead of a kokiri who has spent her entire life living in the forest. I can accept the fact, however, that you are quite gifted when it comes to magic. I'm not sure when you were able to find the time to learn magic in the forest, but it's serving you well in place of a sword and shield,"
replied Spike. He then noticed that I was looking really sad over the fact that he wasn't able to see the truth.
"Look, I know that you are upset over me not believing your story, and it makes me upset knowing that you are upset. So maybe we should just forget about it for a while, and focus on what is at stake, namely fulfilling the task of the Great Deku Tree." "How can I simply forget?"
I asked.
"You will once you realize that you have to remove that parasite, and that the Great Deku Tree is counting on you to complete that task. It's not like I'm asking you to forget about it forever, as I know that is something you just can't bring yourself to doing. Why don't we bring this up again once we've finished here? That should make you feel a lot better, right?"
asked Spike. "That won't make me feel any better since he refuses to believe that this is not my world, but I wasn't about to be deterred from getting through to him as well as Fluttershy. Upon reaching the chest and opening it, I came into the possession of what appeared to be a slingshot, or rather a fairy slingshot, as Spike corrected me. Should I have felt insulted that I was holding a weapon made for a child whereas I was a teenager? Perhaps, but right now I wasn't really in a position to argue about something so trivial. By taking this slingshot with me, I was able to make my way through the Great Deku Tree by hitting various switches with what Spike called Deku seeds. Was everything in this forest, aside from the kokiri named Deku, something? My question would be proven right a little further when I chanced upon yet another plant.
"Who would have thought that one of you forest children would find their way down here?" You can talk?"
I asked.
You're telling me that you are surprised that I am able to speak your language? That's the first time a kokiri has had a reaction like that to a Deku scrub. I don't know if this is some kind of joke, or if you're really clueless about the fact that I can talk. It would be the second reason in my case, because I'm not a kokiri,"
I said.
"Not a kokiri? You're wearing the green clothing of those forest kids, so you obviously must be one of them. I have something very important to tell you which will prove useful, but I'll only share it with you if you can answer a few questions. Answer them all and I will help you, but fail a single one and you're on your own,"
said the Deku scrub.
"I'm not trying to be funny,"
I shouted.
"First question. What kind of items can you find inside this tree by cutting the shrubbery?"
asked the Deku scrub.
"Well, since I use magic instead of a sword, I can't exactly cut the shrubbery, but to answer your question, it would be seeds for some reason, and on some occasions nuts if you are lucky enough." Is there something wrong?"
I asked.
"You used magic? Are you being serious? I have the right mind to just leave you and let you figure things out on your own,"
replied the Deku scrub.
"But I did use magic,"
I protested.
"Prove it!"
shouted the Deku scrub. I wished that he hadn't asked me to do that, but I showed off my magic, which caused him to react exactly as I knew he would. Upon seeing that my magic was fire-based, and that he was made of wood, the plant wound up being set on fire, which is not the way I wanted this next part to happen. I had been a bit on the willing side to answer his questions, but his seeing my magic quickly made him change his mind.
Youch!
I had no idea that you were capable of using fire. Fire is really bad for a Deku scrub like me, as I can simply burn away to ashes. I'm sorry that I thought that you were trying to trick me, but now I see that you are someone to be feared. I'll forego the rest of the questions and just tell you what you need to know, because I don't want to be burned. In order to deal the finishing blow to Queen Goma, who resides just beyond this door, attack her while she is stunned.
That slingshot you have there should prove to be very useful, but I'd say that your magic will be the most effective. The queen is an arachnid and doesn't tolerate fire all that well. Oh Queenie? Sorry about spilling the beans, but my own life is more important than yours is.
The Deku scrub then began to hop away as fast as he was able to, leaving Spike and myself alone.
You did it, Sunset Shimmer,
said Spike.
He said that I was someone to be feared. That isn't how I want people to view me.
I didn't know that he was going to react to my magic in that fashion, and now he has left with the impression that I am some kind of bully who enjoys using her magic to intimidate people. This is exactly what I had to go through back at CHS, where the students saw me as a bully, and both feared and loathed my very existence. Why is it that in this world, I'm being forced to endure the same problems all over again? I asked myself. I knew that I wasn't going to get any kind of answer from Spike because he wouldn't believe me, so I chose to keep these thoughts to myself rather than sharing them with him. Upon entering the door, Spike and I found ourselves in a large room with only the darkness, and a strange scraping sound on the ceiling keeping us company. The lack of light wasn't a problem for me, but that noise was which made me wonder just what I was going to be up against.
Sunset Shimmer,
began Spike.
What is it?
I asked.
You might want to get your magic ready, or the fairy slingshot at least,
replied Spike.
Why?
I asked.
If you look right above you, I think you'll see why,
replied Spike. I looked up just as he said, and my face turned white, for I was staring straight into the face of some kind of giant spider which had a large eye in the middle of the body. This must be the parasite that the great Deku tree told me to defeat in order to break the curse, but he never said anything about having to deal with something so big.
You might want to get out of the way now,
Spike said as the spider dropped to the ground and proceeded to run after me.
Are you trying to run away from a problem again? You easily dealt with those Deku Bas and the Goma larvae in the rooms above, so why can't you do the same here? This thing is much bigger than those other creatures were,
I replied.
Okay, that is actually a good point you make, but that's not what I'm getting at. You struggled before because you had no weapons with which to fight, and you didn't exactly know how your magic was going to work. You've gotten better since then, so the thought of you running away now is nothing short of embarrassing. So stop running away and face Queen Goma right now, and prove yourself to the great Deku tree. Since that Deku scrub said something about stunning the queen, I have a feeling that Giant Eye is most likely the weak point you need to hit,
said Spike.
And how do I hit it?
I asked as I continued to run.
Use the fairy slingshot when the time is right and see what happens,
replied Spike. That was easy for him to say as he can just fly around, but I have to rely heavily on my feet, and I was a much bigger target than he was. As I prepared to use the slingshot, Goma continued to strike at me with large pincer-like claws, and I was barely able to avoid them due to how fast they were. Since I was more focused on watching what the monster was trying to do, and not where I was going, I failed to notice a few stones on the floor, and I ended up tripping on them and falling to the ground. Goma was prepared to attack me once again, but then its eye changed color from yellow to red as it raised its claws, something I hadn't taken notice of all because I was too busy trying not to get hurt. Could this be the weak point I was told about? And it only does this when it is within striking range? Looks like I had to allow it to attack me if I wanted to do this right, so I stopped running and waited for the moment to come with my slingshot ready. Goma's eye changed color once again, and that was when I made my move by firing a seed into the eye. Such a shot caused Goma to fall down and unable to move, which meant the time was right for me to use my magic. I had no time to question if my magic would work on something this big, as who knew how long the monster would be stunned for, so I gave it all I had and hoped that things would work out. Spike looked excited beyond belief as my magic worked exceptionally well.
Now that was certainly a sight to see. Just keep on repeating that and Goma will eventually fall down.
I took those encouraging words to heart, and continued the assault against Goma, and eventually it would be defeated by burning away to nothing. However, it did leave something behind when it disappeared, which made me think that this wasn't over yet.
What is that?
I asked.
That is what is known as a heart container. If you pick it up, you can increase your maximum hearts by 1, and your health will be completely restored,
replied Spike.
That makes no sense at all, I said. I agree with you there, Sunset Shimmer, seeing as there is nothing that indicates that you have hearts of anything that need to be increased or restored, but for some reason these things just happen to exist all across the world. Why they exist is something I've never figured out, but it feels like someone somewhere decided to just put these into our world as a means of collecting them. I'd collect this one as you earned it by defeating Goma, but whether it will actually do anything is beyond me,
said Spike. If I didn't know better, I'd say that he did know the reason, but didn't want, because it meant questioning the very nature of this world. I picked up the heart container, and it entered my body, which made me feel a lot warmer in terms of my spirit.
Guess it did something after all, so picking it up was a good idea. Now that we have finished here, we can leave by standing on that glowing area over there near where Goma fell. I'm sure that it will lead us back outside.
Spike continued as he flew over to the glowing spot, upon which I followed him onto it, and finding myself being risen into the air and everything turning white.
You have done well, Link. Where am I?
I asked.
You stand once again before the great Deku tree.
Link, you have demonstrated thy courage despite the difficulty placed upon thee by not using a weapon, but you have succeeded in breaking the curse that has been plaguing me. For that, I am thankful to you for having fulfilled my wishes. Now you must listen well to my words, for this curse was one that did not occur naturally. This curse was placed upon me by a man wearing black armor who came to this sacred forest not long before you first came here to me. This wicked man of the desert came here in order to seek out the knowledge that would lead him to the sacred realm where the divine relic, the Triforce, has rested since the very beginning of our world's creation.
A long time ago, long before this world even existed, 3 golden goddesses descended upon high and down to the empty void which would one day become Hyrule. They were Din, the goddess of power, Nehru, the goddess of wisdom, and Farore, the goddess of courage. These 3 beings would use their powers in order to create a world that reflected what was within their hearts. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid that I need to interrupt you for a second, I said. Is there a problem?
Asked the Deku tree.
Everything that you just said regarding these goddesses makes no sense to me at all, and just hearing you talk about them isn't making things better. If you were able to give me a visual of some kind, or allow me to actually see what they are, then maybe this would make more sense to me, well, as much sense to me that I am able to handle given how this world still doesn't make sense.
I replied.
But this legend of our world is of great importance, and knowing it will allow you to understand what you must do from this moment on,
said the great Deku tree.
I'm sorry, but if you continue to talk about it, then it will just simply fly over my head unless you can allow me to see it for myself, or give me a visual.
With regards to that desert man you mentioned before getting me confused, I do seem to recall seeing him in this weird dream I had before I woke up in this world.
Maybe you can talk more about him instead, as I've seen his appearance at the very least, and can picture what he may be capable of doing.
That was when something clicked in my mind, and it had to do with what he said about this moment on. Why would he mention something like that?
If that is thy wish on the matter, then I suppose that I shall not reveal the legend of our world's creation, but thou should know that the desert man in black armor is one whose evil desires you should not succumb to.
Thou must never allow him to claim the Triforce, for if he were to claim it as his own, there is no telling what evil he is capable of bringing forth using the power of the gods.
That man, who cast the death curse upon me and sapped my strength, all because I refused to give him what he wants. Though your efforts in breaking the curse were successful, Link, I was doomed before you started, which means that I will pass away soon. You need nor grieve for me, for this was meant to be, even though I wished that I could have told you more about the legend,
said the Deku tree.
I'm sorry that you couldn't tell it to me,
I said sadly.
Then there is one course of action that you must take. Go now to Hyrule Castle by leaving the safety of the forest. There, thou will surely meet the Princess of Destiny, and she will be able to tell you much more about the legend, for her family has deep roots that connect to the Triforce. You are the only hope that this world has, for you alone have been chosen to undertake this tremendous task,
said the Deku tree.
What did you just say?
I asked.
You have chosen to save this world,
replied the Deku tree.
What?
I said with a shock.
The future depends upon thee, Link. Thou art courageous,
said the Deku tree.
Are you telling me that the fate of this world falls onto my shoulders, and that there is no one else who is much better qualified to handle it? I'm not sure if you have the right person for the job here, as I have done things in the past which I wouldn't call heroic, let alone good,
I said.
Why dost thou speakest in such a manner? You have been chosen by destiny to prevent this world from plunging into darkness, and leading it to a path of peace,
said the Deku tree.
I get what you're saying, but you don't really know what I used to do,
I said.
None of the Kokiri have committed any acts that would label them as being unjust,
said the Deku tree.
That's because I am not a Kokiri, nor am I even from this world. Where I am come from, I am a human, but I'm really a pony, who possesses magical powers, and was once the student of the ruler of the kingdom before I allowed my own ambitions to cloud my judgment, and lead me down a path filled with nothing but hatred. So you see, I'm not the kind of hero that you think I am, and I'm certainly not what you would call the one destined to save an entire world. Why is it that I have to keep on saying these same words over and over, which are the truth?
I asked.
These words you speakest of, Link's sound of dreams which have plagued you these past moons, dreams which have become nightmares, and have caused you to believe that you are from a different world than our own,
replied the Deku tree.
That's because I am from another world,
I shouted.
Do not allow these nightmares to confuse you, Link, for you must be brave if you are to prevent the desert man in black armor from achieving his goal of acquiring the sacred Triforce,"
said the Deku Tree.
"And I really wish you wouldn't call me Link."
So this is where I found myself those few hours after the slumber party had started, and that was being told that I was chosen to save an entire world from a man who wanted to conquer it. If I refused to go to Pinkie Pie's party, then none of this would have happened to me, but then one of my friends would be in this situation instead. Maybe this was fated to happen as a means of me being punished for who I used to be, or maybe I was just meant to suffer even if I had gotten myself into a better place. Sigh. It looks like I have no choice but to accept this destiny, and hope that I can somehow fulfill the expectations placed upon me.
Great Deku Tree, please allow me to explain myself so that I can have some peace of mind. My name is not Link, even though you and everyone else in this forest thinks so. My real name is Sunset Shimmer, and everything I have told you up to this point is true whether you believe me or not. I will accept this destiny which has been thrusted onto me because I know deep down that I have no other choice." "Is that what thou truly believes?"
asked the Deku Tree.
"Yes,"
I answered.
"Very well. With my final moments, I shall call you that which you are. Sunset Shimmer, the chosen one who will save this world. Before you leave on thy journey, take this with you, for it is the reason the desert man cast the death curse upon me. This is the spiritual stone of the forest, known as the Kokiri's Emerald. Navi the fairy, please continue to watch over Sunset Shimmer. I entreat thee. Navi. Goodbye."
Before my very eyes, the great Deku Tree lost all of his color and the aura surrounding him faded away. My reaction was difficult for me to place because I didn't know what to think. There was nothing else that I could do, so I decided to follow the final request of the great Deku Tree and meet this. No sooner had I left the great Deku Tree was I stopped by Diamond Tiara, who was blocking my way into the village.
"Link, what in the world did you do?"
asked Diamond Tiara.
"What do you mean?"
I asked.
"The great Deku Tree? Did he die?"
asked Diamond Tiara.
"Yes,"
I answered.
"How could you do such a thing?"
asked Diamond Tiara.
"Hold on a second. Are you accusing me of being the one responsible?"
I asked.
"No one else has been to see the great Deku Tree as of late apart from you, so putting two and two together was easy enough for me. I knew that you were fed up with being bullied by the likes of me, Link, but to go and do what you have done just because of that? If I had only refused you access to the great Deku Tree before, could this have been avoided?"
replied Diamond Tiara.
"You've got your facts completely wrong, so let me set it to you straight. The great Deku Tree had been struck with what he called a death curse long before I arrived, so he was going to die anything because of the actions of one man who wants to conquer this world. All I did was relieve him of his curse, even though it meant little in the overall outcome. If you want to blame anyone, then blame the desert man in black armor instead of me,"
I said.
"Do you think I believe that?"
asked Diamond Tiara.
"Probably not, but right now I have no time to deal with you treating me any worse than what I've already experienced back in my own world. I have to leave this forest and make my way to the castle in order to fulfill my destiny, so if I were you, I'd let me pass so that I can get on with what I have to do,"
I replied.
"You'll have to live the rest of your life knowing that you did something horrible, and I will make sure that every Kokiri knows that you killed the great Deku tree,"
said Diamond Tiara as she stormed off, leaving me to once again wonder why I had to suffer for my actions. I know that I did not kill the great Deku tree, and neither does Spike, but our words alone wouldn't be enough because we had no visual proof of a desert man performing the deed. It seems the more that I do in this world, the worse it was going to be, but I couldn't let it bring me down, for I had to leave the forest and get to the castle as soon as possible. As I ran through the village on my way to the exit, the villagers looked shocked, and how could I blame them? Their guardian was no longer alive, and to the Kokiri, it felt like a small part of themselves had been lost. Upon leaving the village.
"Oh? Are you leaving?" "Fluttershy. You called me that name again, Link, and we both know that my name is Saria, but I can forgive you as always because I know that you have a lot on your mind. Somehow, I always knew that one day you would leave the forest, and explore the world that lies beyond the trees. That made you different from the rest of my friends because they never had such thoughts in their heads. What I'm trying to say is that I really don't want you to go, Link,"
said Fluttershy.
"But I have to go as it's my destiny," I said. "And that's okay with me because I know that this is something that I cannot prevent from happening. No matter what happens, you'll always be my friend, and I want you to keep that in your heart wherever your journey takes you. Before you leave, I want you to have this ocarina as a memento from me. Whenever you play it, I hope that it will remind you of the forest and of me, and that one day you will come back here to visit," said Fluttershy. "An ocarina, hey? Those are actually quite uncommon where I come from, so I wouldn't really know how to play it. Do you happen to have a guitar?" I asked. "A guitar? What is that?" asked Fluttershy. "It's an instrument," I replied. "Do you mean like the ones that are played by wandering minstrels? If so, then I'm sorry, but I don't have one of those on hand. The ocarina, of course, is a much better instrument to play because it doesn't take very long to understand how to play each of the notes. I'm sure that if you practice hard enough, then you will be able to master it, and that would make me feel very happy," said Fluttershy. I felt bad for wanting to have something else, so I decided to accept it and hoped that I could figure out how it was meant to be played. Perhaps she was right and that I should practice it so that I can master it. I gave Fluttershy a big hug as my way of thanking her for the gift. "That came out of nowhere, Link, as you have never given me a hug before, but it felt wonderful knowing that I was able to make you happy. Before I go, I have one thing that I must tell you," I said. "What is it?" asked Fluttershy. "My name in truth is Sunset Shimmer and not Link, and while I would like to explain the reasons behind it, I fear that you would not believe a word that I will say. No one else I've spoken to in this forest believes me, so I apologize for not wanting to tell you," I replied. "Oh." Fluttershy then looked down at the ground slightly before looking back up, and for a moment it looked as though tears from dropping down her face, but I couldn't tell for certain due to the trees blocking out the light of the sun. What I didn't know was that deep down Fluttershy would have believed me had I gone and told her the truth, but I had gone and kept it to myself in fear of not getting the right kind of reaction from her. "I understand that you don't want to tell me because of all of the reactions that you've gotten, but I will certainly respect your decision to want to be called Sunset Shimmer. Hey! That name sounds a little bit familiar to me, but I'm not sure why that is, but like I said, I hope that you will come back to visit." As I turned around and began to leave the forest, a part of me wanted to stay behind and comfort Fluttershy,
but I had to leave if I was to find a way of returning to my world. Soon I found myself outside in what appeared to be a large field, and the sun felt really nice to see instead of the strange glow from the forest.
This is Hyrule Field, which acts as a hub that connects to the remaining areas of Hyrule. Don't feel overwhelmed by how big this field looks, Sunset Shimmer, because it is really easy to traverse. Now I suggest that we hurry up and make our way to Hyrule Castle so that we can this princess that the great Deku Tree told us about,"
said Spike.
"So the time has come for you to begin your journey." "Who said that?"
I asked.
"I did not mean to startle you, my dear, but if you would look up this way towards the top of this nearby tree, you will see the one who speaks to you."
After frantically looking about in order to see who it was that was speaking to me, I looked upward to find myself staring at a giant owl which looked out of place. Then again, with everything that I've seen so far of this world, this owl wasn't as out of place as I assumed. There was also someone on top of the owl, which must have been the rider, and my heart jumped over the fact that I recognized this rider straight away.
"Do realize that your journey will be full of danger and peril, Sunset Shimmer, but you must accept this as your fate, so don't get discouraged even during the most difficult of times." "Flash Sentry!"
I shouted.
"Who is that?"
asked Flash Sentry.
"That would be you," I replied. "A very interesting name to be sure, but it is one that I am not familiar with, but I can tell that it does mean something special to you. My name is Kapura Gabora, but if you want to call me Flash Sentry, then that is okay with me, Sunset Shimmer,"
said Flash Sentry.
"How do you know my name?"
I asked.
"I do not know how I came to learn of it, but it's one that you prefer to call yourself rather than the name that your friends have known you as."
"I have come before you, Sunset Shimmer, in order to guide you along your journey so that you always know where you need to go next. Do not consider me to be a replacement for your partner though, for he can help you in ways that I cannot, but still take my words to heart, for there is much wisdom contained within them. If you continue to travel north, you will reach Hyrule Castle Town, which is the main city in Hyrule. There is a princess who lives in the castle there, who is renowned for her kindness, wisdom, and for being well loved and respected by the people. If you so wish it, you can always head to Lon Lon Ranch, which is located in the very center of Hyrule Field, before making your way to the castle."
Lon Lon Ranch is also in the northern direction, so if you want to go there for whatever reason, by all means do so, as you might find something useful there. I do have one more piece of advice before I take my leave, and that has to do with the fact that you should travel about Hyrule Field at night,"
replied Flash Sentry.
"What happens at night?"
I asked.
"Dark creatures have been known to appear when the sun goes down, and they disappear upon its rise. If you intend on traveling about the field at night, be sure that you are well prepared to defend yourself. We shall meet again soon, Sunset Shimmer, so be careful on your journey,"
replied Flash Sentry. He motioned for the giant owl to take to the sky, and within a matter of seconds, he was completely out of sight. What he said about the creatures coming out at night was a concern to me, so it gave me the incentive to either make my way to the castle before the sun went down, or perhaps seek refuge at the ranch and perhaps spend the night there. Considering that the sun was already at the highest point in the sky, the likelihood of me getting to the castle before nightfall was slim at best, so I decided to go to the ranch instead, as it was a lot closer. Upon entering the ranch a short time later, I was surprised to find that it looked really calm and peaceful, just like Applejack's farm back in the human world. Maybe some aspects of the human world managed to retain themselves in this world when we were brought here?
"What do you know about this place, Spike?"
I asked.
Lon Lon Ranch is seen as the very central point in both Hyrule and Hyrule Field since it is located right in the very center of the kingdom. The ranch is known for its famous milk, which is ironically called Lon Lon milk because many across the kingdom consume it on a regular basis. Perhaps the ranch's biggest thing it has going for it has to do with the horses that they keep around here,
replied Spike.
Did you say horses?
I asked.
And not the kind that you probably know about that have magical powers,
laughed Spike.
Very funny,
I moaned.
The horses they breed here are among the finest in all of Hyrule, and that is saying much seeing as any horses you see in the other areas of the kingdom all originally came from here, or their parents did. Many horses are presented as gifts while others are purchased by those who want them. There have been some rumors going around that Gerudo thieves have entered the ranch during the night, and stole some of the horses, but that is just a rumor. Aside from that, there isn't really much else to do around here. I suggest that we make our way to the castle right now, but if you want to, we can take a few minutes to explore and see what we can find,
said Spike. The ranch itself consisted of a house, a stable, what could possibly be a shed way at the very back, and a large corral where horses of all shapes and sizes were galloping around at their own leisure, which brought a small tear to my eye. Looking to the right, I noticed a figure standing there holding a pitchfork in one hand, and what appeared to be a bag of feed in the other. Upon walking closer to him, I discovered that it was Big Macintosh, or Big Mac for short, but he had a rather angry expression across his face, and it changed to a slightly more angry expression when he noticed me looking at him.
"What do you think you're looking at, you little weirdo?"
asked Big Mac.
"I wasn't trying to imply anything," I replied. "Well, the way you were staring at me made me feel real uncomfortable, so watch it. By the way, what in the world is up with that green outfit? You look like you came from the forest, or wanting to go and live there among the trees." "I am Ango, and I mind the ranch by working as a farmhand for the owner of this place,"
said Big Mac.
"Do you do all of the work?"
I asked.
Yup,"
answered Big Mac.
"Shouldn't you have other people around to help you?"
I asked.
Yup, but I'm the only one the ranch owner hired on to be a farmhand."
At first I was excited about working here and making a living for myself, but then I soon discovered that the owner, Talon, is nothing but a lazy bum who does next to no work at all. She spends all of her time breeding some special cuckoos in the house, but to me that's a big ol' waste of time which ought to be used for getting the chores done around here.
"Her granddaughter Malin isn't as bad as she is because she's just a kid and all, yet the young un ought to do a couple of jobs here and there to help her prepare for the time where she will get to run things instead of Talon,"
replied Big Mac.
"Where is the owner now?"
I asked.
"She went to Hyrule Castle Town in order to make a delivery, but she hasn't come back yet, and here I am on my own having to do all of the chores until she finally has the sense to return." Sigh. "It's tough to be a working man sometimes, but I suppose it's just a part of life." Yup. Her granddaughter also went along with her to the castle, but she's too young to make her way back here on her own, so she's probably just as ticked off as I am that she has to wait around for that lazy bum. "By the way, what's your name and what are you doing here at the ranch?"
asked Big Mac.
"My name is Sunset Shimmer and I was wondering if I could stay the night here," I replied. "What kind of name is that?"
"It sure is a funny name, that's for sure, and to answer your other question, nope. I don't have the authority to allow you to stay here for the night, as that is something that only Talon can do since she is the owner. See? Her laziness has proven to be inconvenient to you just like it has to me. I take it that you plan on going to the castle as well, right?
If I were you, I'd get over there right away before the drawbridge closes for the night. Oh, and if you see Talon in town, if you manage to get there in time, tell her to hurry up and get back here, as it's been well over 8 hours since she left for that delivery,"
said Big Mac as he walked off moaning to himself. This meant that I had to get to the castle town before the drawbridge closes, so I started to run in order to get there before it was too late. If I don't make it to the castle in time, then there was a chance that I wouldn't live to see the following sunrise. To be continued. Chapter 2, To Meet the Princess.